Hey everyone, Rushlock here to tell you about Galactic Hauling Solutions Incorporated. Flat rate shipping any distance, anywhere except nullsec. Simple, 210 million ISK will move up to 4 billion in value and up to 360,000 M3 within 72 hours. If you have any questions about further details, go to the in-game channel GHSOL in-game and ask there.
HighSec Buyback offers 90% JITA anywhere in HighSec. Simply go to highsec.evebuyback.com, appraise your items, create a contract, and get paid quickly.
Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, New Eden. This is Astraeos Khan, and we are welcoming everybody to Sunday's episode of Talking in Stations. Today I'm here with a few guests, a few notable guests, and we'll get to them here shortly. But I'm also joined today by my friend Ben and my friend Shen. Do you guys want to go ahead and just say hello real quick?
Hello, real quick.
Hello.
How are y'all doing this morning or whatever time y'all are in currently?
Is doing fine. Thank you.
Doing well, yeah.
Good, that's good. How about our guest? I mean, we've already pretty much know Eric from last week's show, but I didn't get to properly introduce my other good friend, Beaconboy. How are you doing today?
Doing real good. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, no problem, no problem. And then also, just in case we didn't have anybody watch last week's show, do y'all want to go ahead and just do a quick introduction before we get started?
Sure. So I'm the CEO for Galactic Hauling. We've been doing jump freighter hauling for 10 years into low sec, and we're ready to move your cargo.
Good.
Yeah, so my name is Eric Audeleson. I run low-sec buyback. I'm heavily involved with high-sec buyback. Been doing that for a couple of years now, and that's where I'm from.
Cool. And yeah, like at the end of the show, we'll make sure we get a lot of questions because last week's show was pretty knowledgeable about the information that we were receiving, and it wasn't enough to get in one show, or so we're trying to make sure we get everything processed on this show. Now, but before we get to that, there is a few things of news that we have to go over. So the first part of the news is new ship skins for the consortium. CCP had released a dev blog about it, but it's basically just centered around the new consortium skins. Do y'all know a lot about that stuff, Shen and Ben?
Well,
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially the skin you see on ships. Right now, you're able to customize it, but put it on structures. It's something that CCP has promised last year since FanFest. It's coming in the next expansion. With that, you're now able to buy the skins, like ship skins. You're able to only rent them. The only problem that with renting it and a lot of, at least with NOSEC, is I think this happens too with a lot of low-sec groups. And since we have some CEOs of corps here, then we can talk about this if this is true for some holding corps as well, where a lot of alliances, they have holding corps, and holding corps are there with only directors out, and they're out to keep in place with access but not actually using them. So therefore there won't be a lot of evermarks. With that, it's almost impossible for big structures like for example the 1DQ Keepstars to actually have skins on them. So this seems like, for me, CCP designed this for high sec or low sec or non sec small groups, and this is only for small groups.
But
If you have
not only that, like a lot of wormhole people, like they have like, let's say, offset alliances so that they don't get a war deck to sell their blue loots. So that's even more like not available for them. So yeah, like no sec, wormholes, low sec. That's a lot of people not having access to that.
Yeah. So it's designed for small groups, pretty much.
Yeah, and then another notable thing about the skins too that'll be really cool is they're gonna, well, there's a few things. They're gonna have the whole the customization options are gonna be included for whole logos, lights, and colors. So like it's gonna be just a broad spectrum of different kind of like cool things that you could put on your station skins.
Yeah, 99 different colors in 3 shines, so 33 different colors with shine. So that's actually, I think they are going to be looking like really great. But another thing that they announced is another way to get the Evermarks, which will be something else than what we got with giving the ships to like the other ones. It should be something that the corp leader can be able to give quests or something like that, missions to the new bros, or anyone, and that's gonna be awards Evermark. So if you are able to do that in your own space, that could actually be great. And if you can actually accept missions from another corporation, now you just unlock the issue of what we were speaking about earlier, not being accessible for bigger groups, wormholes, and low sec.
And one more interesting thing about the update too that I don't think anybody's kind of discussed just yet is these skins will also be permanent too. So with your ship skins, you can swap them out as much times as you want, but with these Upworld consortium skins, this will be permanent. So once you apply it, I don't believe you could change it based off of the devlog.
Well, in the other CCP stream, they showed that you can change it, but you'll have to repay the rent to be able to show them for a certain time. So if you get 30 days, then you can sell it, but well, sorry, you just lost the Evermore that you spent. But yeah, you can, if you pay the Evermores, you'll be able to change it.
Okay, well, my mistake. Correction. Thank you for correcting me on that, then, Ben. There are ways to change it. But that. Oh, go ahead, Shen.
Also, just to add a few more, to add up to, I guess, to the solutions, one thing we can expect is what CCP said in the stream, right? More ways to get Evermarks. But another way, to simply put, just have an alliance Evermark, right? There we have personal ones, we have corp ones. Why not just add an alliance one, right? And that way you can up the amount, right, needed for skins, for alliance skins, alliance structure skins. But this way, is open up to much more groups, right? A group to a certain size have to avoid espionage, have to have a holding corp. Anyone with that situation, they're not able to use it. So I think that prevents a lot of people from actually enjoying this expansion.
And briefly, also, can you kind of explain why it would be counterproductive to not have this in place if you can prevent espionage and prevent corp theft?
Well, one of the things is with NOSEC, at least, and also wormhole and lowsec, a lot of times holding corps are there to hold structures and a lot of access. A lot of access, let's say, to able to control the structure, able to abandon structures, able to pull out fuels, readjust fittings, and all that stuff. of course, espionage has been something that CP has been heavily advertising to non-EVE players. But as much as that's true, bigger groups have learned the lessons and try to avoid that as much as possible. So if you add characters to holding corps, but then you're putting risk to yourself of, are those characters going to be safe? Are those people that I can trust? And sure, maybe you can hardly trust like 10, 20 people, but are you able to trust 200 people, 2,000 people, right? And that's the question. One of the things I guess Asher said during the fireside is we just have like 200 people join that corp and just strictly with absolutely no roles set them in Jita, and then just have haul freighters of frigates haul them to the Paragon station and just have them mechanically do the mission every day. That's another way to do it, but is that really enjoying EVE? Is that what CP meant for? I don't know.
Yeah, because like when you're like having like one of those corp that are there, not only is that for security, because like if you don't do that, there's so many ways to actually abuse the system of corporation and management. Like it's really too easy. Like someone that knows what they're doing, or that they've been like owning a corporation for quite a time, they know like a lot of little ways to hurt a big organization. So yeah, like those shell corp are really necessary for the game to be happening.
Right. And I think it's one or two things that's happening with this too, or the lack of at least changing corporational structure. I think it's either CCP hasn't gotten around to remodify the way corporations are set up, or I think it's a little bit of what Shen was saying, to where I don't know. I feel like CCP has an insatiable hunger for like espionage stories, because you were kind of saying a little bit about how like, no, I don't think you were talking about it, but there was a video a few years ago that had described a player who was seeking revenge on a corporation that had killed him, right? And he had joined his corporation and he got revenge and he took all its stuff. I feel like that's always kind of been CCP's way of looking at spy games and EVE, is they openly accept it, and I feel like maybe on one way or another they're willing to update changes with that in mind and not eliminate that gameplay style. Do y'all feel the same way as well?
It's a sandbox,
Yeah.
and they have every reason to be advertising that. They do very little regulation on it, and I think that's what makes the game great.
It's definitely one of the things that makes EVE so unique. And the spy stuff, along with these big, massive wars, are the stuff that makes the headlines, right? And catches attention. So I definitely can understand why they'd lean into it.
Yeah, but also there's the like usually you should have like counterplay for like when you get like a kind of gameplay, you should always like balance it with counterplay, and like the counterplay for espionage has been like third party development, so you need to get someone like with like IT like skills to be able to help you with everything that has to do with espionage. And that's like on the other side of what should be like the gaming boundaries. Well, that's an opinion, but yeah.
And then again, it's not like you could fully stop somebody, because it's so easy to start up a new tune, skill inject them, or even just buy an account from the New Eden Bazaar. It's just espionage, and of course, this is what makes the game, dynamically interesting. And I just feel like, yeah, there is a lack of counterplay, and I do feel like in a lot of changes that CCP makes or updates, they come with that in mind, to continue to at least allow people that availability to take advantage of corporations, because yeah, I mean that's what makes the game interesting. That's what gives the game at least more purpose. If you always have that glaring kind of like scare in the back of your mind that at any point there's somebody in my corporation that could screw me over, you'll be less likely to be like a Care Bear in HiSec just mining away just obliviously, if you always have that danger in your mind that, okay, well, the guy I'm mining with one day might just gank me because I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, or the other way around. Like I've been ganked like too much and I've lost too much, and now I'm only a Care Bear in ISEC.
Yeah.
Post-traumatic
we could
syndrome.
we could spin all day about that. There I go with tangent. So let's go ahead and back up. So the next point, the next part of the news is there's a Plex sale going on. I think it was, let's see. Yeah, so there's a new Plex sale going on. You get 2 for 1 for the Plex, and then I also do believe included in the Plex there's skill injectors and skill extractors for Alpha and Omega accounts. Do you guys plan on getting the Plex sale or using the Plex sale?
Well, I'm still Plex like up to not a year, but still got a lot of time.
Or you mean you have a subscription up for a year, or you have enough Plexes for a year?
I've
'Cause
got enough Plexes and time about
Oh, dang.
yeah.
Okay.
Some
Well,
advantages
dang.
of like wormholes.
Well, if you're interested, you could always just send me some Plexes, and you could restock on this new amazing deal that CCP is offering. Did anybody else want to add anything to this sale? Do y'all plan on getting it?
I mean, this is a good time to liquidate your Plex. Plex price been driving up really high because people are buying those Plexes to then buy those skill structures. I believe that's how it goes. That's why the Plex price been driving very high. Like it's up well over the 5 million mark, which is something that people always saying like it's hard to break, but with sales it's been always been broken like that, but this time it's like 5.5 almost. This is one of the rare cases to see. Like even buy prices are like 5.48, something like that.
And you think that with this sale it'll be enough to get that below that buy order price?
Like afterwards, or
Just during it? Because I feel like I don't think it'll bring it down too much because of the demand. I don't know. I feel like we're in a crazy amount of inflation in New Eden nowadays. Do you feel the same way too?
I mean inflations are good, so but it has to be what percentage, right? It's that 2% mark. But the thing with Plexes is from previous experiences, like they do a sale, Plex parts go up, and then it comes down with a long way. Like it doesn't really come down right away. During the year with like caps are really hard to build before this April or March's expansion, right? Where caps are much easier to build right now. Or last year's? I don't remember. This year or last year's expansion where
like there's been like a soften up on cap production. Like
yeah, that one. Basically, before that, during that year, like every time there's a sale, Plex goes up, it stays there. Another sale, it goes up, and it just keep climbing. So it's good to see it come down for the last few months, last few weeks. But
yeah,
we will see. This will be an interesting one.
Actually, I got a follow-up question on that. Do you think that it's a CCP that is doing that on purpose to actually get the Plex at the right place and get people to buy Plexes, like with let's say an upcoming expansion that they want to be sure that people are playing?
I mean, there are two ways to look at it. One is if you look at it from a business perspective, the higher the Plex price is, the better it is, right? Because people are paying no matter what, how much, like no matter what the Plex price is, they're paying like say $20 for 500 Plex, right? That will now change, and then it's how much enjoyment that your customer are able to get from that $20 experience, right? If you can cash out like 1.2 billion, that's better than 1 billion, right? In that way, the higher it is. But also, if you look at from a player or expansion perspective, a game perspective, I think the Plex price goes down means it's doing very well, because that means a lot of new players are getting in, and then new players want to get a head start. They have to buy Plex, which means that more Plex are injecting to the market, and therefore Plex price is going to go down. That's been the saying after the previous expansion, the faction warfare expansion was live. We have seen that a little bit, but like at least for the couple months after the expansion was live, it stayed pretty much, I think, where it was. So it's been going down ever since that. So we'll see about this expansion. Like I still think if Plexverse goes down, means that expansion is doing really well, attracting all the new players. But if it goes up, we'll see how to explain that afterwards.
One thing I did want to piggyback off of Ben too is with these skill extractors, do you think it was either timed by CCP to kind of like get people to start planning to free up skill points for the Lancers? Or do you well not even or, but and then on top of that, it's not really a related question, but do you see a lot of people taking advantage of the sale because of like the Lancers coming, it's gonna require a lot of training time. Yeah.
Yeah,
How do
well,
y'all feel about that question and stuff?
yeah, well, the Lancer itself, it's not everyone that wants to get into them. It's gonna be like only a few people for it that will want to fill up that role because it's really like a new and a specific role that requires people with, let's say, a good wallet, and also that they are ready to do the initial experiment of like that works, that doesn't. So yeah, like I think it's gonna get to a very specific people in big groups. So it's not. I don't think it's gonna get a lot of attention aside from a few big groups.
I mean, but these big groups will have a lot of people in a lot of alts. So I think like it'll be a lot bigger when you compare it to like HiSec, which I mean nobody's really going to be using these ships in HiSec, and even there's only a few there's only going to be a few minority low-sec corporations that will also be fielding these, especially because of like the danger of testing, being the first ones to test it out. It's going to be the no-sec groups that are going to one be hungry enough to try them out, test them out, tinker with them, and then have the bodies and the ISK and the supply chains to produce them. So I
Well,
feel like this will.
them and snuffed out.
Well, I mean the minority of low-sec. But yeah, I think that's a great thing for this new update coming up. It's really going to be interesting. I'm not trying to go back into that whole discussion, but like, man, I'm just so excited to see how everything kind of just plays out. But yeah, so that's the skin, or not the Plex changes. Sorry, I'm a little tired. So now, with that being said, there is one more related piece of information that I'm gonna just briefly touch because it's kind of deep as far as like the lore is concerned, and I don't want to take up too much time, but it's related to the Caldari and Mimitar reset that had happened about a month ago. In the latest news, the Caldari are expanding and creating more closer ties with the Mimitar, and they're establishing a new forge, which will also kind of lead into some economic changes for players. But before I even start talking about it, do you guys know a lot about this change, or do y'all have any questions about it that you've kind of, once you've read the article, have kind of raised your eyebrows a little bit?
Yeah, well, it's an RP article, so we'll see how it's gonna be applied in game because we know that CCP want to get rid of pauses. So how that's gonna be like implemented, because the pauses are great because of the force field, but if those are in the open, not sure they're gonna be used that much because, well, the pauses are fun because they can get deployed fast, like in a few minutes or a few hours, depending on the size and the complexity of them. But the module that you used to have in them, you cannot have anymore. So will those be something that you can put in the pauses? So I think that it's like new codes and old codes. Like, what's gonna be happening with that? Because you still can get like a stretcher pretty cheap and just get like an industry into it with unlimited access to cargo.
Right, but with this change specifically, I mean, it'll be advantaging mostly like Mimitar and Caldari pilots, and not everybody who is set up to do, like you said, buy a pos has the standings for that. So don't you believe like it'll be kind of like a plus for those people?
Well, it's the Ishikon Corporation, if I remember correctly, or correct me if I'm wrong, Astraeos Corporation are one of the corporations in the Caldari that are the most market friendly with everyone, meaning that they will most likely be wanting to sell this stuff to everyone. So just as they did with the capsule technology.
Well, it's going to be, well, with the lower event, it looks like it's going to be more towards improving standings with Mimitar, right? So, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm doing a little tinfoiling, and that's why I'm trying to like avoid this whole situation. But it, based off of this post and last post, it's more of a development to improve the economic facilities of the Mimitar. So I feel like if you don't have maybe a direct tie to the Republic, then maybe they wouldn't work with you. But of course, that's all speculative. But
Exciting
there are,
stuff.
huh?
Exciting stuff.
Oh, exciting stuff. Yeah. One concern that I did see, and I'll briefly touch on this, is a lot of people are concerned about the changes economically, and a lot of people are kind of concerned because they won't have access to the manufacturing, the research, and the compressing and the refining productions from these facilities. Do you think that with the with people not being allowed to get access to them, do you think it'll have a big enough economic draw to be a negative aspect for a lot of people, or do you kind of like you were saying before, don't see a lot of people being drawn to it because of the vulnerability aspect?
Well, everything that's to do with standing is not for a majority of people, I think, because a lot of people want to enjoy the sandbox effect of EVE Online, which is not the standings, which requires missions and other kinds of stuff that is not for everyone to play with. So not sure that it's gonna be that much on standing, but we'll see. Maybe it's gonna be in the LP store of those faction, so that you can buy them and install it like in Wormhole's Perilous or Nullsec or anywhere else. So maybe it's just gonna be like where it's gonna be sold. I don't know. That would actually make maybe more sense. Like
And oh, go ahead.
yeah, like just like LP store for like Ishukon and not remember which of the Matar tribe.
And then also too, to kind of like just leave it at this, if you are interested more in like the RP side of this, Astarothi did a video, like I said, about well, I think the original reset was about a month ago, and I know he had made a hour-long video kind of explaining the post and these new ties that are forming between the Caldari and the Mimitar. And I'm pretty sure, based off of how he normally does his live streams, he'll also release one on this one, and he'll kind of go more because Astarothi is pretty knowledgeable about RP and the lore, so he'll go really in depth in detail about this. So if you haven't already subscribed to Astarothi, I would, and go ahead and click that follow button.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah, me too. Now, the last bit of news what we're going to cover real quick is this whole kerfuffle wouldn't be the right word, but this whole thing going on with the Init goons and is it a possible reset? Have you guys had a chance to kind of review over Reddit specifically as to what's going on with that, and do you have any opinions going on with that as well?
Well,
Yeah, with the Init one, right?
Mm.
Yeah, so Init officially leaves the Imperium. So, but we're still stay in blue with them. For line members, the only difference is we lose access, of course, to Fountain Market and Ratting. But everything else pretty much stay the same. Yeah.
still got the bridge access.
Yep, still got the bridge access.
So it's just like give the permission for Init to actually just don't have too much diplomatic ties with Imperium deals. Is that it?
But they will also lose. Well, we were sharing our spaces before. They will lose that, and they will lose the market. So it's just like cutting ties. They gain their freedom, but they'll also lose, quote unquote, the nest thing.
Do they already have a confirmed area that they're moving to, or is that still being kind of
They're
thought about?
staying where they are. Fountain.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, interesting. Huh.
So on the Init side, like it doesn't change much for them, right? Like for like the regular F1 player.
I mean, again, it's ratting, right? Ratting, they can't really rat in Delve or Queers or anywhere else in Imperium space. They can't use the market in 1DQ. Other than that, it's pretty much the same for them for now.
Okay, but they
Until
still got
further-
Fountain and everything,
Yeah.
so like, no big difference. It's just that like I know yesterday on the Meta show they were talking about maybe something happening to the TTT. Do you have like information concerning that?
Well, Shine said it, right? He has his eyes on it, but nothing immediate.
Interesting. Yeah, I should probably go watch that. What exactly did they say about? Did they just say they want to destroy it, or like, do they hint at it or nudge?
I mean, Shine's has been saying about that for a while, right? He doesn't think it's healthy to have a Keepstar as a market in high sec. But with the current mechanics, it's kind of hard to kill it. So, but also with ties of big groups, it's extremely hard to even kill it when big groups are not getting involved. So yeah.
Right, and I think it's gonna be probably kind of like decided with goons. I mean, I've known goons have also said they have disdain towards the TTT. So if they were to not even like side with in it or just stay out of the way, I feel like I don't know, maybe that would be enough to take out the Keepstar.
Yeah, but remember, this thing is designed for super cap to kill it, not even caps. we have tried so many times, right, in X47 to even use
That's
these
true.
caps and even subcaps to kill it. It took 2-3 crashed downtime for the server to entirely crack, for the server to reset, to not even be able to kill it. And I don't know how the Taida and the server performance is going to be in Jita or in perimeter. I mean, it is said that Jita is buffed at all time, right? That's why it's able to sustain thousands of people. But 6,000, 7,000 at once, I don't know how that will do to perimeter's performance.
It'll tank for sure. You're probably right. The server performance wouldn't, even if they were to have enough numbers, I think the server performance would probably like, fail cascade. But it still would be, I don't know. I feel like for a business opportunity, I feel like that'd be great, losing all those battleships.
That's
But
true,
yeah.
yeah.
That's a lot of Leshak.
Yeah, well, it's Axe too, yeah. But I was thinking because I know they run a lot of Ravens, so maybe they would try that. But yeah,
Well, like
who
the
knows?
DPS will be better on the Leshak, and they need to get the damage cap, and on a Keepstar it's pretty high. I don't remember the number, but you will need a few Leshaks.
I mean, any Keepstar attacks, the first thing is server performance that we have to think about and how that will do to the performance of the fleet and the performance of, let's say, how missiles going to be tracked. Like tie-dye fights, there's no missiles. Like it will get eaten by tie-dye. So, and see, right? So that you lose a weapon option right there, right? So you have to really think about a lot of things when you start a Keepstar fight.
Right, and also the Leshaks require less kind of like.
And the Leshak can't spool, if you think about it.
Well, that
Yeah.
part. Plus, I mean, they don't require as much micromanagement as the Raven would, right? Because they're pretty simple to
I mean,
fight
Raven
with.
is not usable if there's no missiles. So
Well, I mean, no, I get that part, but I'm also saying like the amount of attention that you need to put in, especially now that things will be slower with tie-dye, is a lot less than what you were saying with the Leshak. So I was just saying it's also a buff because with Ravens, I feel like you have to move around, you have to probably do like follow in the anchor and all that stuff. Whereas with Leshaks, probably just have to just anchor and just sit there, kind of deal, right?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Ravens, yeah. Raven has just good uses, ESS especially, but yeah.
Yeah. But all right, cool. So we pretty much hit that over the head a couple of times. So now that we've kind of went ahead, we went over the weekly news. I want to just go ahead and shift gears and try to put as much time into this next segment as I can. We started it last week and we went over hauling with Eric, and later on in the show we were followed up with Beaconboy. But due to the amount of information and due to the amount of time that we had, we weren't actually able to get all the questions that we wanted out of the way. So we're gonna just do some more questions. And also, if you do have questions for Eric and Beaconboy, go ahead and ask in Twitch chat, and I'm gonna make sure that I take note of them and ask them as we do the interview. And I feel like it's important to also reintroduce our guests because we did spend a lot more time than I was planning to on the news. So just one more time, Eric, could you just give us a brief description of, who you are in Eve, who you fly with, and some important notable information that you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
Well, like I said last time, I do try to keep my PvP and my business kind of separate. In terms of hauling and that type of stuff, I run low sec buyback, and I work with high sec buyback as well, which I believe are the two largest public buybacks in Eve period, servicing all high sec and low sec space, as well as some Pachven. That's a bit more niche.
Okay. And Beaconboy also, would you go ahead and just mind doing a brief interview once again for the audience?
Sure, I'm the CEO of Galactic Hauling Solutions. We've been hauling your cargo with jump freighters for the last 10 years everywhere but null-sec, so we cover all of low-sec and all high-sec, much like Eric does. We're looking forward to moving your cargo. Come on over to the in-game channel of GHSOL, and you can see some really exciting offers that we might get into a little later.
Yeah, and also before we begin too, I also heard from someone that you were also planning on running for CSM. Did you?
Yes.
Is that true? Oh, okay, you were.
Yeah. I'm actually going to start. They haven't made the announcement of the election, so I'm pre-announcing.
Oh,
And
my bad.
I'm intending to represent the shippers, haulers, industrialists, traders, and focus on the contracting mechanism, which has really needed some attention for 10 years. It's needed a complete overhaul. And I'm looking forward to doing some exciting things. I'm also offering up, for people who vote for me, some free shipping while I'm in CSM.
Wait, so did I hear that correctly? You're doing free shipping for?
If I'm elected, if I successfully get elected to CSM, I am ready to move your cargo for free. Come on over to in-game channel Galactic Hauling GHSOL, sorry, in-game GHSOL, and you can find out all about those details.
Yeah, we're gonna have to probably talk about that because I do need some free shipping, and I'm pretty sure the audience would like to hear a little bit more about that as well because it's kind of interesting. But yeah, not going to sit on that too much. Let's go ahead and just jump on into the questions now. So, for either one of you, once again, this video or this podcast today, it's going to be more aligned towards, well, we kind of went over the beginning stuff next time. So now I feel like the questions would be more suited towards intermediate to hopefully a new player trying to get into advanced hauling. So the first question I feel like I've been hungry about wanting to know with hauling is, what type of advice would you give someone who's just wanting just to start out kind of like in intermediate courier contracts? And y'all could tackle it together, or you can, take turns. It's really up to you.
New player hauling can be very tricky because there's a lot of scams that target haulers. I would definitely tell anyone that's interested in starting to haul to just avoid citadels. Citadels can be extremely tricky for a lot of different reasons when it comes to hauling.
Okay. Is there any specific like ships? Well, I know we kind of went into it a little bit last time, so we're not going to get back into ships. What about you, Bacon? Do you have kind of like any things that you would want to add for somebody who's trying to get into, intermediate hauling, but they don't know exactly where to start or what to look out for?
Yeah. I prefer blockade runners. I think they're the most reliable, cheapest ship. You can move about 1.5 billion ISK in it relatively safely. You'll see that's what the larger courier corps, end up doing. They serve a much broader segment in the market than Galactic Hauling, or just jump raiders. And I think when you move up to the deep space transport, you're going to find that you're going to get ganked a lot more often. They're just not as safe. You can get caught on gate a lot more easily. Ultimately, whether you choose just a T1 hauler, a blockade runner, or a deep space transport, the name of the game here is counting how many contracts you can complete before you get ganked. That's the trick here. I can talk about the jump raider side, but if you want to look on the lower ends, I'm not going to have as many numbers here. Where what is it? Do you need to do 15 contracts before you've paid off your the ship that you're hauling with? You have to get a certain success rate. And that way, you'll know you're becoming better and better and improving, because the number of contracts you're completing between gankings, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Ideally, just as an example, for a blockade runner, if you could do 100 contracts without getting ganked, you could easily replace that blockade runner, and don't even have to worry about the 1.5 billion you necessarily lost, when you got ganked.
Okay, that's a lot of good information. Shen, do you have a follow-up question to that, or do you have your own separate question?
Yeah, like I guess this is more from a NASA perspective, and this is a really specific questions. So sometimes we see a lot of times in those, we have a bot right in at the TS Discord called Eve Feed Big Kills. We see a lot of times the jump raider kills. Is it true that at least hauling wise, it's impossible if you do it right to not get jump raiders killed? Is that the truth?
Jeez, that's quite a
Talk
challenge
about
there.
just, like, yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you're driving at, though.
And be sure that what you're going to be saying is going to be thrown in your face in a few years if you get elected.
Oh, I can whip out a dozen jump raider gankings. Just tell me when you want to see them. And no, I've lost my share of jump raiders. I will say this one. You touched on the topic of if you execute perfectly, and that is not trivial. The amount of clicks when you have to do them, and no one really to guide you about what routine to develop, because that's what's going to happen. If you're a jump raider pilot, you're going to develop a routine, and it's going to take too long, and you're going to be tempted to take a shortcut, and then if the gankers are there right there while you're doing your shortcut, you're going to pay for it with your ship. But if you're very disciplined, there are jump raider pilots, not me, who have never lost a ship, and they've done just as much hauling as me because they're extremely disciplined, and they never rush, and they always pause, because that's what the jump raider pilot can do. It's detecting the threat and then getting around it. And one way of getting around it is to wait. I don't have to go through that gate now. I don't have to go through the gate all afternoon. I'll just sit here in the station until you get tired.
I've done that. I've time zone tanked people, because I do jump freighter haul into NPC nullsec, and I undocked one time and they had the entire station bubbled, and I literally just was like, okay, I redocked, because you have the invulnerability, which is a great tool if you're jump freightering. So you can undock, stop your ship, and actually have a second to look around, and then just dock up and wait, come back with a stealth bomber, clear all the bubbles later.
Yeah, it's a lot of cat and mouse, kind of like with hauling with jump freighters, right?
There's a lot of little mechanics that you have to know. Like, again, even the invulnerability is something that new haulers may not know. When you undock, you got that 10 seconds, use it. Don't change direction, just stop your ship, look around, and assess. People will panic and click warp or try to align, and that can definitely get you killed.
Yeah, control space is your friend, right? It just brings you to a halt, and if you're in a jump freighter, there is no such thing as a kick-out station. We just move too slow out of it. We'll never leave any docking ring. I will point out one more thing, too. Much like Eric was saying, you're invulnerable, when you leave the station. If you are smart about it. In a similar sense, you're invulnerable when you've gone through the gate too, right? You're cloaked up for 60 seconds. And if I see a wall of catalysts or a wall of stealth bombers or someone who's going to scram me, and then I'll be visited by that wall of stealth bombers, I can generally sino out ahead of them because I have an e-sino ready. And the moment anything looked funny on the other side of the station, I lit it. And at that point, I can get to the jump button before they can get to the lock button.
It's a really good point too.
Nice. So you guys lose a lot of ventures, right? In that sense, with all those industrial sinos.
You bet. They're disposable. I lose hundreds every month. It's the cost of doing business. It doesn't hurt me to lose the venture. The actual cost there is probably 200 to 300K, and that's I buy at the right times and I manufacture. You get the point. I keep my prices down. What kills me though is losing the industrial sinos because those are 5 million, and that's where the bulk of the expense is.
A lot
Yeah,
of people
that's
also
true.
pod your Sino alts too, and it kind of like makes you have to bring them back to the system with another ship.
Generally, the med clone's right next door, and or in the same system. It is a little funny to see them pod me, and then I just pop back right into the same station system, and they go, "What happened?" I just potted. You're still in local. Oh well, yeah. No, but yeah, podding is pretty immaterial. There's jump clones, there's med clones. You get the drift.
Yeah. Here's another question I do want to ask you too. So, how do you manage your hauling operations while you're engaging in, other spooky systems or spooky regions? Because I know you were briefly kind of touching on the NPC space, and then on top of that, with that, how do you also kind of like separate yourself or keep yourself in like PvP hostile areas?
Not 100% sure I understood the last part of your question.
Well, sorry, let me if you were to say, for example, get a contract to I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure you would avoid it, but like say for example, there's an area of space that has been already been kind of like updated to already be having a ton of conflict. Are there certain procedures that you would follow to kind of like keep yourself in those situations so you can complete those contracts?
Scouts.
Scouts.
If I have to go, like I said, I will jump straight into NPC null. I do not use citadels, any of them, unless I put them up myself, which I don't have any currently. But yeah, scout alts. I run 4 accounts usually, so I'll have 3 or 4 scouts running around keeping eyes on things. And then sometimes if something's really weird, you can light a separate emergency sino or even a decoy sino just to see if somebody's watching the in-game sino map.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I got a cute war story for you, but it'd take a little time where it was incredibly hostile. It actually involves the Imperium years ago when they evacuated the North. So this is probably, I don't know, 5... How long ago would this been? I don't keep up with nullsec politics enough.
So what time period was it?
When they left that area on the north side of the map and then went down to the southwest.
You mean when they were living in Delph or?
No, before then. That's
Transition
what
from like Declan.
Oh, Declan.
Yeah.
To Delph. Yeah.
That's
So there was a big.
years?
It would be like 2015 for World War B1.
Yeah, that was when Test and Goons had evicted. I think there was a alliance called Own Alliance. Yeah, that was about 6 years ago, I think. But continue your story. Oh, also too, before you continue your story, could you also kind of like if there is any like important things that you would kind of be able to discuss to how you manage your operations too, that would kind of help out a little bit too.
Sorry, so can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so basically it's just specifically centered around like how do you manage your hauling operations? So like scouts, sinos, if there's any specific. Yeah.
I have a sino network, and that means all my supplies are out there. This is actually one of the biggest barriers to entry. because I probably have about 75 spots all across LowSec where I got supplies. So then I just have to get the Sino alt there, and you can do that with jump clones. I have a bunch of Sino alts, and they all have 9-10 jump clones, so I can be almost anywhere instantly. Med clone to get back, right? And other than that, you simply start Sinoing in that direction. If the station, sometimes the stations are busy. Like, help me with the pronunciation here. Ahabazan, did I say that right?
Abazon?
Amazon.
Yeah.
Say that again.
I call it Amazon.
Yeah.
Abazan. That sounds fine to me. Yeah. Abazan would be a perfect example of this that everyone's familiar with, where the system is always busy. I have my Sino supplies there, but I'll lose a venture every time I light it, because someone will come over and blow it up, and I have to be a little careful. Maybe someone's going to try bumping me off the station, and of course, going through the gate towards Jita is always a fun time.
Now tell me about that war story you were going to get into. I feel like I kind of like knocked you off a little bit there, and I definitely would like to hear about it.
Yeah. So all I was saying about was that they did an evacuation. Sarurin is up in Lone Track, SARAREN or SAREN. Anyways, they were literally funneling everything through there, and I would of course get contracts, probably from the goons, who wanted me to move it instead of the Alliance hauling, because I'm sure they were overwhelmed. But to launch a venture out of a station, knowing all the places that the jump freighter can appear, there are stations where you're invulnerable, and then you light, and then you do a jump of the jump freighter in there despite everything around you. I mean, there are 50 ships all ready to shoot you, but they're not fast enough on the lock and shoot, and the jump freighter comes screaming in and then docks. And at that point, you pick up the load, and just like Eric was describing, you got your invulnerability and for the jump freighter when it leaves, and you Sino back out. And I did it a couple dozen times over that week that they were evacuating, moving probably their stuff and getting my venture shot pretty regularly. But that's an example of operations in a more hostile environment.
Cool.
Where I'm being shot by literally the same people in the organization that I'm moving their cargo.
I mean, that's sort of like baiting, right? In that sense.
Huh?
It's sort of like baiting you into the station. And
No. I mean, if you're baiting me, I can see what you're going to ask me to move. It'll be garbage. You know what I'm saying? Because you'll put empty containers in there and high collateral and hope I get ganked, and then you get the collateral, right? So, but everything, when the values of the assets being moved matches the collateral, it's probably not a bait.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I also do a lot of industry myself, and hauling is one of them, right? So it's kind of essential where you can't really do industry without hauling. But a lot of times, like a lot of people that I talk to who also do industry, myself included, finds hauling is kind of boring. So how do stay motivated long term wise to just keep this going?
I'll refer this to Eric, because what he does, I don't know how he keeps doing it.
Yeah, hauling is.
Well,
it's definitely very repetitive, but again, I run 3 or 4 accounts, so I'm usually doing enough different things. Like if I'm running blockade runners, I have scouts out. I do a lot of market stuff, so I'll have an account up doing that while I'm doing it. The guys who just straight up run a single freighter hauling in high sec all day, that's a little bit different. I can see that getting pretty boring. But if you're hauling, especially for industry, you probably have a multifaceted setup where you can do other things and pair it up.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the kind of hauling that I do is a little bit different, right? With nullsec, especially self null, we run it's very, very easy for us to just do bridge titans and then just two side of destination with titans and freighters, right? So that's very different from, I guess, commercial hauling in that sense, from, I guess, high sec all the way to null sec or anywhere in the universe.
Oh yeah, that's the way to haul. I mean, your cost per whatever billions of is moved or whatever freighters and avatars every time, but some of us can't afford avatars.
I mean, it just costs a lot of strunks. That's for sure.
And the keep stars that go with them, and the huge fleet to protect them, and
Yeah.
But alliance hauling, absolutely, that's the way to do it. I've always wanted to get into it.
Yeah, like that's you see a fleet of like 20 freighters just waiting on Titan, just waiting for the signal to lit up, and then just when the signal's up, you see like all 20 of them fly away. Sometimes that's just like the logistic of war, right? We saw a lot of that actually during the fighting between Imperium and PenFab up in the north.
Yeah, and when you get to experience
times,
it's just
Yeah, I was
magical.
always amused that the Fenrir was the preferred regular freighter to use because of the low mass. Is that right?
Is that right? I don't know. Because like
I don't know.
For me, I count it differently, I guess. So there are two ways of doing it. Like one is the way I do it, which is I just do it for my corp, and then we are on a somewhat of a small scale rather than those kind of big alliance-wide or coalition-wide logistic. Those are very different for sure. But from what I do, I just because we live in Aquarius, right? So the isotope that we get here is helium, which is for the Mar. That's why I have my own arc as my jump freighter.
Absolutely.
I think that makes more sense, right? As a soft-null alliance, you choose the ratio freighter with the place where you live in.
Yeah. Right, yeah. But the Fenrir doesn't actually burn any fuel, and that's why I was mentioning it.
Yeah, it has the lowest fuel cost for sure.
The Avatar will, though. It will burn fuel.
That's true. Like, Titans, moving a fleet of them, they burn strongs and isotopes. It burns a lot of them for sure. So yeah, it gets the ice mining game going as well.
Yeah, I've accumulated huge stockpiles of isotope, especially when the whole corp switched over to Rhea, so we could offer our customers the biggest, cargo size of 360,000 cubic meters. But I really appreciate when scarcity ended and the ice prices came back down.
Yeah, so on that note, how has like scarcity or let's say cap production and all that stuff affected, all those game changes has affected hauling in that sense?
Absolutely. People really don't realize just how much hauling underpins all activities and how there's often unintended consequences as CCP rolls something out. T2 Dread is a perfect example of them doing it again. But, before that was Edencom. Before that was jump fatigue and, Edencom Sinojammers for jump freighter pilots. And before that, it was jump fatigue. I know this is kind of jump freighter centric. Sorry.
Actually, I mean, I think that's a question that actually would lead directly into kind of what you were getting into about CCP. So for you and Eric, how has the hauling industry changed since you first started playing Eve, or since you first kind of started getting into hauling? Like, what are some notable changes that you noticed?
The largest one for me so far has been the interdiction changes with the nullifier. Because I do a lot of blockade running. That's probably the most common hauler I use is the blockade runner these days.
Are you talking about the module itself that allows you to warp through bubbles?
And having to use and manage it. Like, especially in some of these areas, people set up bubble camps in every concurrent system. So you have to have a little bit of knowledge of the area you're in. Because there's a lot of times if I hit the nullifier, I have to wait that out in system before I hit the next gate because it'll also be bubbled.
Considering those nullifier, like there's the T1, T2, and maybe like a faction, but if I remember correctly, like the T2 is worth nothing. Yeah.
It's actually worse than the Tech 1 module. Yeah, the Tech 1 module is the best.
How is that?
It has the lowest cycle time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See how that's a problem.
Yeah, they have. I'm surprised that they haven't reverted it. But yeah, it's like I think the only case in Eve where the Tech One module is decidedly better than a Meta or a Tech Two.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
weird.
the only time like Type 2 is actually useful is on interceptors, where especially scouts, because they get bonus for it, and especially like Type 3 cruisers, since they get bonus to it, I think slightly better, right? It does have the longer cycle time, but it gets reduced significantly by the hull bonus.
So it's worthwhile to then put it on those ships. I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
That's kind of weird. I wonder why they haven't patched that. And it's, you know what? No, I'm not even gonna. I was gonna start talking about warp core stabilizers too, but never mind. So,
Did you want me to talk about a more conceptual change since I've started hauling that I think people don't really appreciate, and that would be jump fatigue.
I mean, the question's more related to what you feel is the most important aspect about hauling and what's changed. So if that's
Well,
jump fatigue,
jump fatigue would be high on that list, certainly top three. And the reason I'm mentioning is conceptually, it has a very interesting idea. Before jump fatigue, I could just hop back and forth with impunity. If I had 10 loads at one place, and I had to move them one sino jump away, I could have it done in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Huge. But what they ended up doing when CCP introduced jump fatigue is they established a speed limit for jump freighters. And I'm mentioning this because it's a neat concept. If you're in a jump freighter and you're hopping, from sino to sino, let's say max distance, worst case, you have to wait in station 10 minutes for your jump fatigue to lower to a point where it will no longer accumulate. Because that's the name of the game. Don't let it accumulate. And essentially, that means I can do 6 jumps an hour at best. That's my speed limit. Now, I can break the speed limit, right? But then I will start accumulating jump fatigue, and in a matter of 3-4 jumps at breaking, the speed limit, I will find I have hours of jump fatigue where, now I can't use this jump freighter pilot, right? And I'm not going to earn ISK from them. So I thought it was an interesting concept just to toss out there so your listeners understood just how jump fatigue affects the hauling industry.
Yeah, and how about like getting even more like jump freighter halts? So that you don't have like jump fatigue, just switch the ship from alts to alts at every
Yes,
jump.
that is the tricky thing that I know some of the jump freighter pilots that I work with do, and it's pretty intriguing, but you gotta be running a lot of Omega accounts.
And that's a lot of skill points too for
Training jump freighters on
Yeah.
multiple alts is definitely an investment.
I would say it's, in my book, it's a bit of a luxury. I only know of a couple people who do it. I'm suspecting, and I'll toss out a name, and I've dealt with him occasionally, but we'll see what he thinks if he hears this. Moonpire, he's got to have multiple Omega accounts.
Wait, Moonpire, right?
Did I say it right? Moonpire?
Yeah,
right?
like
Yeah.
we have seen them in Nullsec, especially the region where I live too. Those people with Dominic's with like 20 Ls and those people.
My point is, I don't know if he's waiting 10 minutes in every station, and obeying the speed limit and that thing, or if he has multiple jump freighter alts for each of his jump freighter hulls so that he can charge along. Because I'll tell you, that evac he did out of the southeast, what was that, 3-6 months ago? That was impressive.
Right. Yeah. So I guess one of the things is right now there's agreement, right? Like you said, down in the south where fire has been evicted, and those groups, there are a lot of new groups there, right? So a lot of with new groups, they don't really necessarily have the ability to haul. Has that like give you guys more opportunities to earn money, or has that affected you guys at all, like the south agreement?
Well, if you're talking about like the southeast, it might be where I live.
Yeah, like Immensia, what's it, Detroit, like where all those X fire space, right? Right now, it's a lot of small alliances, right? Just hauling jump freighters, as much as it's capable, right, to be run by one person or one corp, a small corporate in nullsec or small alliance in nullsec, that is still a lot of ISK, a lot of investment there. So have they asked you guys for help or stuff like that?
Well, I'll step in here and mention Galactic Hauling, GHSOL, no nullsec. It really helps keep me under the radar of the nullsec alliances, and I will say that I've done nullsec hauling on occasion. It's not like I've never done it, but it's through a fairly formal arrangement that involves a lot of cargo being moved. Nothing like what Moonpire did, but it's going to take a lot of IS to convince me to go into nullsec.
Right. So it's either null, it's like either no contract or it's like gonna be a big contract, right?
Oh, like I said, I just don't go into null. It's like Eric was saying. I don't do citadels. I don't do nullsec. Both are just too complicated. Galactic Hauling Solutions is a simple courier service. We don't try to be everything to everyone. We handle our segment of the market, and at this point, the numbers I've been seeing in the last week or two show we're actually the market leaders.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I was surprised by it too. I'd wondered for years, and then I got more information, and suddenly it's like, geez, we moved one out of every two jump freighter size loads out of low sec, out or in or out of low sec, and we did that all last month and all for this whole year. Quite a surprise.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Real quick too, I did want to ask you. This will be probably a weird question to be asked, but has there been any heists that you've been involved in to freight, or you knowingly knew that possibly the cargo was stolen on any of your contract jobs?
Well, Eric's not jumping to that one, so I'll speak to it. Not knowingly.
Fair enough.
I will say that we don't ask questions. We can see what's in there, but I'm not sure exactly what cargo I would see that would tip me off that this was a heist. But let's say somehow there was some set of things, and I peeked, and it's like, oh wow, I know what this is. The reality is, it's not my job. My job is defined by that contract. Get it from here to there. I will say one thing that again is sort of the amusing war story, which was 8-10 years ago. For whatever reason, CCP actually went after my jump freighter alt's account, and suddenly I couldn't log in, and suddenly I had to go talk to a GM, and clearly what had happened is whoever did the heist just dumped it all on Galactic Hauling, and they thought I was complicit. I think that might have actually happened twice back then, and then I think at that point I was on a list of don't go and shut down his account. He's a legitimate hauler, and in that respect, I haven't dealt with it for God knows. I barely remember those times.
I'm wondering, have you moved, let's say, a 20 faction Fortizar lately? Or something that might be worth 2 T's or stuff?
Well, I'll say first of all, I never revealed anything that we moved because it was customer. But I will say that our pricing has a 7 billion cap. Now, that's not to say our 7 billion collateral cap. That's not to say we wouldn't entertain this type of thing, but I will say it wouldn't be handled within Galactic Hauling. It would end up being a private matter, and more reason I wouldn't say anything to you.
Okay, but if let's say for it's an hypothesis, if we got something of really high value to move in known space, you might know someone.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. I have all sorts of fellow haulers that handle the small expensive stuff that worth hundreds of billions, and the same thing. If it was jump freighter size, I'd pay attention to it. I always feel a little weird moving 10 cubic meters in a jump freighter where the cargo hole's completely empty, and you always have to sort of raise an eyebrow, right? Because you're definitely entering there as scams. But I don't know, Eric. What do you think?
I haven't gotten any contracts of that size. it would also be something that I would definitely not be opposed to, but it would definitely it would raise some eyebrows. And it, like you said, it's one of those things you really got to watch, because you start getting into scam territory, and you can lose a lot of money.
Yeah, so I guess one of the things is when you do this scale of business, what do you do with the money that you gain? Like, do you make investments, do industry, buy capital ships, or like what do you do with them with money?
In my case, it goes into supporting and growing the business, and also like I recently just had a kid, right? So if I have spare risk, it means I can go longer while I sit on stuff potentially. So just it helps to not lose business. And sorry, that's not a good explanation. But yeah, I reinvest
I mean, that
basically
works.
all of the profit into the service and the business.
Yeah, I think that's a fine answer, actually. I mean, I've been working with you for well over a year now. Was it 2 years? And you know, I watched the cycle of when your contracts come through. But for myself, with all my earnings, I accumulate them. I pour a lot of it into fuel, so I have an enormous stockpile that is purchased at the right price. But then I also do crazy things like make outrageous CSM election or CSM election runs where I'm going. If the CSM thing comes through, I will take an enormous hit to my wallet because I won't be able to do all the business, and I'll have to incentivize all my jump freighter pilots to move a huge amount of cargo.
Right. With that promise.
Well, as I said, with Galactic Calling, we have the history. 14,000 contracts moved over just a 7-year period. That was what was sitting in the web server before it went down. Did 3,000 contracts in the last year for a faction warfare group, and I haven't really got much chance to go into it, and maybe we'll get to it in this show. But the recent math I've been doing for the last year or two, or sorry, last week or two, I said that wrong. Last week or two is showing that as a rough number, there are 1,000 low sec, non-null sec, low sec, high sec, jump freighter sized contracts being made every month, of which I'm saying Galactic Calling is getting about 500 of them. So we can handle a lot, and I'll be, of course, hiring more jump freighter pilots. I've been doing it for the last 3 months. I'll be hiring even more the moment the CSM election comes through.
And actually, I do actually have a side question to that. So with that amount of contracts, I'm pretty sure there's also a lot of competition. How do this is question is for both of you. How do you both stay competitive in the market, and how do you also, especially with the information that you were about to get into, how do you still manage to maintain profitable or have a profit margin that's positive to continue to do that?
As to competition on my side of things, a lot of it is size, right? Like I said, I believe we're the largest public buybacks in Eve. I mean, I don't know that we could be larger than some of these large null sec groups, but I think in terms of public buybacks, at least in high sec and low sec, we're the largest, right? So we have a little bit of a name. A lot of competition does pop up, especially around like the low sec hubs, and in those cases, we tend to be easier, right? Which is what a lot of people are looking for in terms of a buyback service. On the hauling end, it's a little bit different. It's usually whether you can be the cheapest while still being reliable.
So to kind of make sure I'm understanding, like, the way that you guys stay profitable, or the way that you also set yourself aside from the competition is just based off of your sales proposition, that it's just easier for customers to use your service. And with that, of course, the high sec buyback and low sec buyback website is pretty amazing too.
Yeah, so there's three things that people really care about, right? It's easy use, speed, and cost.
I totally agree with what Eric said. I might reorder it though, Eric. I think cost is going to be at the top of the list. And ease of use is really a function of how complex your organization is. Eric does buyback, it has to be complex. But I do hauling, it doesn't have to be complex. We do flat rate hauling, and for that reason, it's very simple to use. And then finally, speed of delivery is always a differentiator. But because there's no way of proving who's fastest, because the information isn't out there, in a transparent fashion, it's a little hard to make that case. The customers that noticed your speed and how quick you were to deliver are the ones who are the repeat customers. So maybe in that respect, you could measure it by repeat customers. And in Galactic Calling, we were up at around 75% of the contracts were repeat customers, though it's dropped to about 2/3, 66%, probably because we're getting a big influx of new customers due to the CSM thing.
Right. And do you also, so this could be questions for both of you too. Do you also try to keep your prices as low as possible, or are you pretty competitive with your prices as well?
Absolutely. I'll throw that in there. And my reason for mentioning that is, we could sit down and I can break out exactly how much of a $210 million contract is going to expenses. I'm more than happy to do that. But the more important thing is that I have a handle on each expense, the time spent hauling, and that obviously you could potentially show that as an ISK per hour, earning potential. And my point is our prices have been always driven off our expenses and a fair, compensation to the jump freighter pilot. And I'm not so sure my competitors work that way. I know one of my competitors absolutely just follows the other one's lockstep. They raise, one competitor raises, the other one raises, just to be just below it. And I do feel like one of those competitors has really increased the price to the point of hurting their market share. They have no problem attracting a jump freighter pilot, but how much work do they now have for them? So it's a bit of a trade-off. There's always going to be a floor, which is your expenses and fair compensation for the time. But in addition to that, you have to always be looking at how can you deliver more to your customers. Anytime we've done a price increase, we've also given something back to the customer. Here's more cubic meters, for you to put your cargo in. Here's a higher collateral we'll take for you, that type of thing. So anytime there's been a price increase, we've always tried to give something back so it was more palatable to the customer base. And for that reason, I don't think we've ever had shrinkage.
It's funny that you bring that up too, because at the beginning of the video, when you were kind of introducing that free hauling service, I don't know. I feel like whenever I call, like when I had cable, or whenever I call like Spectrum, there's always like that deal that they're willing to promote to either get a customer or get a repeat customer. Um, and I kind of feel like with your corporation, just by how you describe things, it seems like you're more focused on the consumer's enjoyment at the end of the whole process. I mean, the jump freighter pilot is important, but at the end, you want to make sure that the customer itself, or the consumer of the service, the person submitting the contract, is the one that receives most of the enjoyment. Is that something that you've always kind of been in a mindset of? And is that also kind of why?
Absolutely, customer based always, and I think Eric would agree. It's not only that you do what you said you do, because our 210 million rate says 3 days, but when they see it delivered in single digits hours, like 6 hours later, they get excited. And Eric, I think you're in the same boat too. When they put a contract up, buyback contract for you, if it's accepted within 2 hours, they're your repeat customer, right?
Yeah, we get a lot of people that are amazed with how fast we can accept contracts sometimes. And it definitely helps.
And then
I think they
and then the
actually get
sorting.
it done in less than an hour in a lot of times too.
Yeah,
Price
and
like
then the
buyback is
sorting
less than
begins,
an
right?
hour. Yep.
Eric, and then the sorting begins, right? Sorting all that stuff because you accept it within an hour. I deliver it within 6 hours, and then wait, this took 2 days to get to market because sorting sucks.
Sorting, repackaging. Yeah, repackaging could use a little bit of love, but yeah, when you were talking about complexity before, the operations are complex on the back end, not customer face. For the customer, it's very easy. You know, you put in the number, you put up the contract, you get your money.
I could only imagine. I do want to lead into a follow-up question about that, but with Bacon, with that mindset for your customers, is that why, with the campaign slogan at the beginning of the video, it seemed like you were more customer friendly and no, that's not how I want to word that, but with that, is that why you've kind of migrated your promotions into your CSM campaign as well?
Oh yeah, we had promotions before this.
Right.
We have a Citadel trial that's been going on where we spun it off into Citadel Hauling Solutions. It's separate from Galactic Haulings, but a sister organization, and they do all sorts of things like centralized billing, load consolidation. Obviously, we've worked out deposits to ensure if our jump fares get shot outside of a Citadel, the jump fare pilot doesn't suffer. He's compensated for losing it at a Citadel. But even before that, we had another one that was really popular for a while. We had over 1,500, and I should say, sorry, before I go on, the Citadel trial has had 3,000 contracts. That's nothing trivial. That's a huge endeavor over a year, and it's gone wildly well. Everyone involved is excited. But the other one, other program that both customers and jump fair pilots have been excited about, which was temporarily removed at the end of the year just to simplify things during the CSM election, was evac. It's evacuation, and what we did, and I don't know, Eric, did you ever use this at all?
The evacs, yeah.
Yeah, couple times I remember. But what we do is we move your cargo in low sec to the closest high sec station, and then you can use some other hauling service that's purely high sec to move it far more cheaply, and we cut our rates in half. And that's the customer focus. So now instead of asking for 210 million, we said, if you'll do this as conveniently for us as possible, we'll chop your rate to 105 million and move the same amount of cargo. And then of course they shift it over to Red Frog and move it far cheaper from the boonies and high sec to Jita.
Not the boonies.
The boonies? I'd call Berta the boonies. I'd call Zingcon the boonies.
Now, before we continue, we are actually I didn't even notice the time. And it's just kind of like I was saying in the last episode, it's just hard to get all the questions that we want in because I think between Shen and I, had a combined total of 30 questions, and I think we only got to like less than 10. So hauling is complicated. And before we do close, I do want to give the audience a chance to, ask any questions that they may have wanted to ask Eric or Bacon Boy. Is there any questions from the audience members that I may have missed or, during the video you wanted to bring up that we didn't already ask? Give you a few minutes for that.
Yeah, I will say all these programs I was mentioning are with a customer focus of how to integrate what the customer needed with what the jump freighter pilot can easily do. And we incentivize that with lower rates.
Nice. Also, if you got questions that have not been answered during this show and that you're listening to us on YouTube, use the comment section below to ask the question, and we'll make certain that they get answered. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Very good point too. And also, I guess while we're waiting we'll give it about another minute or so. While we're waiting for the closing questions, I did have somebody private message me about Beaconboy's his
like
promotion that he had
I've
for
put
CSM.
like the image on them to be sure, like it's a beacon, it's a Sino beacon.
I'm trying, man. As Bacon just
Eric's
keeps
cracking
coming
up
to my head.
every time you do it. I watch him chuckle, and I'm going. Eric's like, he did it again.
It's just,
Bacon
it just
saved the
rolls
day.
off the tongue. You know, how we were laughing about this at the beginning of the show. It just rolls off the tongue so nicely.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, Bacon Boy.
Oh yeah.
Whatever you remember when you go to vote.
Bacon.
But dang it, now I'm getting on a tangent here. Yeah, so somebody messaged me about the promotion that you were offering. I know we didn't really get into it, or we didn't have a lot of time. Is there any important specific information that you want to go ahead and just drop for the question?
Yeah, it's fine. I'd love to go into some of the details. What it comes down to is everything depends on the CSM election. If after that I've won, this all happens. You create one paid contract before the end of the election to Galactic Calling, and I will move one free load every month from the same alt for the whole time that I'm in CSM. So you're putting in 210 million, which you might already be spending anyways, maybe even with the competitors. I don't know. And my point is, you have potentially as much as 2.5 billion in free services spread out over the whole year. Now, I want to point out one more thing before before we go into any further part of this. Every single Omega account that is going to vote potentially has 3 alts. If you made 3 paid contracts, one with each alt, you'd actually now be getting 3 free loads per month for that whole time I'm in CSM with the
I see what
assumption
you're saying.
I got. Right. And I have no ability to tell whether you voted for me or not. No one can tell how you voted. You know, if your NullSec Alliance people are telling you, hey, you need to vote this way, they'll never know if you slipped me in the first slot or not. And my reason for saying this is so I have to have a list. And I bet you all those people who did in my list of completed contracts are the ones who probably voted for me. So it helps me out. I mean, if you're wondering why the paid contract there, it is an investment, but it's also a streamlining internally. I now have the list. I can turn to each of my jump freighter pilots and say, hey, if you see this guy's name on, having done a contract, and he has a 0 reward, go ahead and do it. I will pay you out of my wallet. So I will be compensating all my jump freighter pilots for your free loads.
Cool.
Remember, you can tell one of your friends about this too, and maybe they're about to spend 210 million on shipping somewhere. And this is your chance to get them free shipping. And
Just as we were
do a little
about to,
campaigning for me.
just as we were about to close, actually, I did get another question. So, Orion asks, what do you want to change with your CSM? If you were to get in CSM, what would you change, I guess, exclusive to hauling?
Oh, yeah. I get your point. The platform. Besides getting something for yourself, what are the changes? My main focus has always been on the contracting mechanism, which hasn't really been overhauled for 10 years. And even the item sorting. I mean, what Eric was describing there of needing a massive overall way of repackaging a bunch of things that it doesn't matter if it's repackageable enough, just do it and then stack them. And he needs tools to help him with sorting, in my opinion. That's what I would be advocating for. When it comes to T2 dreads, I would, as a CSM representative, be sitting there saying, do you understand what you're going to do to the economy when all jump raiders have to come to a halt because they can't go through a gate between low sec and high sec because of those T2 dreads and their lances behind them? The Edencom Sinojammer fiasco would be another one, and I'll be blunt in saying they really needed a hauler's point of view when it came to jump fatigue because they've reworked that so many times.
And even to take that step further, like courier contract, I'm gonna keep it short. I know everybody's ready to get out of here, but even then, like courier contract is terrible for a lot of people. They have to do, twice the amount of contracts just to move one freight to avoid getting ganked. Like a few people call it double wrapping, if that's the correct term for
Yeah.
we're yeah.
And making triple wrapping would be a huge boon to nullsec alliances because they could shift cargo around much more effectively. Additionally, bonuses are needed potentially, where for early delivery, the shortest delivery time you can specify is 24 hours, but I have lost track of the number of people who want to go and see an extra 10 million for every hour earlier you do, or some mechanism like that, so they can tip, in a sense, their hauler for fast delivery. And then in a recent in a stream yesterday, we were talking about how making all the completed contracts from the public queue available would so much help people in understanding what is market rates.
I got a
So you're
question
talking
for
about
you.
like a Oh, go ahead.
So, do you have something for the wormhole people?
Bigger wormholes? I don't know. I wish I could say I have some, but to be honest, I don't haul there. And the one courier corp that I know that does haul there, it's really a limited service. But if it's a challenging place to deliver in, especially if you're in a jump freighter.
Well, that's
Yeah.
scary. I wouldn't even want to do it.
Yeah, but even smaller ones. I mean, I'd be advocating for the smaller haulers too.
Now, so to make sure I understood that correctly, were you saying you wanted to create a repository of prices so that other people
Yep.
kind of get it? Gotcha.
And
Okay.
all my suggestions are fairly simple to implement. I do understand CCP has limited development, so I'm looking at the items that have minimal development for maximum gain. And if you had a list of all completed contracts, sortable, where you can categorize it by region, and you can then narrow the variables. You can say, look, the last 50 contracts that went from Amar to Jita were this price with this size, and these rewards are even ISK per meters cubed. You could see these things.
But wouldn't that be like a security? Well, wouldn't that be kind of dangerous to see like the characters' names that are hauling?
Yes.
And like,
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And what we've done I had a website up for 7 years, and we scrubbed that data. And so I have experience doing this. We did it within Galactic Calling. It worked wonderfully, and we never had a security breach on data.
so what you're suggesting is more or less just the starting destination, the size, the price per jump, and then the ending destination.
And
Everything else is
you probably want to break it down into groups of sizes. Like, this is blockade runner size, this is DST size, this is jump freighter size, this is regular freighter size, and you can see how it's filterable and sortable. This is really not a lot of work. I did it for 7 years, and it ran wonderfully.
It's less intensive than the mining ledger. So yeah, I would agree. I mean, the mining ledger has so much information. It has the system you mined in, the amount of ore, the type of ore, and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think that'd be amazing if they did
These
that.
are the things in CSM I could advocate for. Everyone thinks hauling is simple, but it underpins everything, and as it becomes more streamlined with simple changes, the game gets better for everyone.
Right.
Yeah. With that, I have one last thing. I think. I mean, since we're on the topic of CSM, and do you think the MER has anything that we can provide in terms of hauling, right? Because one of the things that's on the MER is the import and export between different regions, right? Do you think, let's say, if you get on CSM, do you think the MER needs to be updated to reflect hauling in any sense? And do you think is the import export a valid one, or do you think there should be something to do?
Yeah. I do look at that on the monthly economic report, and I will say I've been very encouraged by the changes that CCP's made in the last 3 to 6 months in expanding it. I think there's room to expand it a lot more, but I will absolutely say I don't understand the level of effort by whoever's doing it in CCP, and that's always something we have to factor in.
Man, well, yeah, we're over the time. I wish I was better managing time with this show, but yeah, we probably got to start pulling the plug here before we close.
No part 3?
Man, I don't know about.
There's the comment section for that, so I will invite you, Beaconboy, and our friend, don't want to miss your name too much, Eric, to keep an eye out on the YouTube video of it to be able to answer questions that people will have in the comment section that are in direct link with what have been discussed today.
Copy that.
And just as a general invite, come in game to channel GHSOL, and I'll answer any questions you want.
That's actually a good segue to my next point. So I was just gonna say, does everybody have like a closing statement that they want to add before we go ahead and close up the show? Like advertising your corporations, just say something funny.
Yeah, sure. Tuesday at like 2015 Eastern Standard Time Zone, there's the Beaver Show on the Sovereign Advanced channel on YouTube, so be sure to have a look at it. We also speak about different kinds of news and have some weird mascot doing some weird stuff, but it's funny, so yeah.
For sure. Cool. What about you, Eric or Beacon, and Shen? Do you have anything you want to close with?
Oh, I'm good. There's just that usual plug. Come on and talk with me in game and channel GHSOL. I'm happy to go over anything about the CSM or even your most detailed needs when it comes to hauling. I'm very good at taking a pile of cargo and finding intriguing ways, so I may just refer you to Eric in many cases.
I don't have anything too specific. If anyone's curious about our services, we have an in-game channel, which is HSBB Public. We also have Discords for low sec or high sec buyback. So if people are curious, shoot me a Discord message or whatever, and we can get you sorted out.
Shin?
Yeah, for me, I guess aside from hauling, back to the news, like looking for the Viridian expansion, right? It's coming in June. We don't know what day it's gonna be, but yeah, that's something very, very looking forward to, testing out new dress and all that stuff. Yeah.
All right, and I do want to close on this. If you are a pilot looking to join the best faction that is in Eve, it's including the Galante, the Caldari, and then the Amarians that are the worst. Come join the Minmatar Republic. You could either join the faction itself, or you can join our independent organization of mining corporations that are all affiliated with the Minmatar Republic. We're super friendly. We have a ton of business and a ton of stuff that needs to get done. We're looking for haulers. We're looking for miners, and you don't have to join the alliance or the corporations to get involved. So if you're interested, you can shoot me a message in Discord, or you can shoot me a message in game, and we'll get you sorted.
Great.
Cool. All right. Well, that is the show. Thank you, everybody, for sitting around and listening to us talk about the wondrous life of hauling. We'll have a show coming in the next few days, and you have a good one, New Eden.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, everyone. Au revoir.
Hey everyone, Rushlock here to tell you about Galactic Hauling Solutions Incorporated. Flat rate shipping any distance, anywhere except nullsec. Simple, 210 million ISK will move up to 4 billion in value and up to 360,000 M3 within 72 hours. If you have any questions about further details, go to the in-game channel GHSOL in-game and ask there.
HiSec Buyback offers 90% JITA anywhere in HiSec. Simply go to hisec.evebuyback.com, appraise your items, create a contract, and get paid quickly.